Today's lesson is on sequences as ordered pairs. A sequence is a list of numbers, and in our examples, they'll often follow a little bit of a pattern. Now, we can turn these into ordered pairs because we can see which term is which in the sequence. So the first number will be the first term. So our first term would be 1. Our second term would be 3. Our third term would be 5. So it just continues down the list that the order the numbers are in tells you which term it is. So for question number 1, they'll just give you some sentences that say like the 8th term or the whichever the 2nd, the 6th, the 3rd term is, and then you have to fill in the blank. So you'd go, okay, the 8th term is 15. So that's what we would put as our answer. So for number 1, you're just filling that in. Question number 2 is going to ask you to make a t-table out of the term number and the term. So the term number is what position it's in. So whether it's the first number, the second number, the third number, etc. in the list. So if we looked at our top part, the green numbers here that I've added would be your term number, but the white numbers would be your term. So if we were to fill it in for, say, the first 4 numbers, our first 4 term numbers would just be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then our terms would be what happens in that place. So in first position, we have 1. In second position, we have 3. In third position, we have 5. In fourth position, we have 7. This should look fairly familiar to yesterday's work, and so it should be fairly simple to see how we could turn these into ordered pairs. We simply put our term number first and our term second. Question 3 is going to ask you to change the sequence into ordered pairs. As you are filling out your ordered pairs, the first number is your term number, and so it's always going to just start at 1 and go up by 1. The second number in our ordered pair is going to be the term, which is the list of numbers that are in our sequence. So we would then fill in our first term is 1, our second term is 3, our third term is 5, our fourth term is 7, we'd add another 1, so this will be our fifth term is 9. So our first ones just stay the same and we go up by 1, but our second number matches our sequence list. Question 4 is going to ask you to change a set of ordered pairs into a sequence of numbers. So for this question, what we're simply doing is our first number is our term number, so that just tells us what order to put it in. We're just basically writing a list of the terms, which are the second number. So we go 1, 5, 9, 13, 17. So that would be our sequence. So this is how we would do 4A. Question B is going to give you some descriptions for the patterns, and you'll have to match the sequence. So when you're doing this, you would actually on the line after it go, okay, well this one looks like C, and you'd put C there. But what I'm going to do instead is actually show you an example of what each one looks like. So for something to increase and then decrease, it means the numbers are going up and then down. So say you started at 3, you could go 3, 7, 9, but then they have to go down, 8, 2. That would be going up and then down, increasing then decreasing. Increasing by the same amount would be you start at one number and then you go up by the same amount each time. So if I always went up by 3, then I'd go 5, 8, 11, 14. A repeating one has a sequence of numbers that repeats, So if I went 7, 2, 3, and then I repeated those numbers, 7, 2, 3, that would be a repeating sequence. And then decreasing by different amounts. So if I started with something bigger probably, and I went down by 3, but then I went down by 5, and then I went down by 1, and then I went down by 6. So it's decreasing by different amounts each time. So your job is take your sequences from here and match them to the description. So if we look at 1, 4, 9, 13, and 17, it's going up by 4 each time. So that means it's increasing by the same amount. So that would match this description. The fifth question for part A is going to ask you to reorder the pairs so that the first numbers are in increasing order. So increasing is going to mean smallest to largest, and then we're going to change it into a sequence. So we're starting just by looking at the first number in the sequence, and we have to figure out which one is the smallest. Well, our smallest number is 2. So we would start by writing down the ordered pair for 2. We'd go 2 and 11. Then we look for our next number. Okay, after 2 we have 3. So we go 3 and 10. And then we'd go 4 and 7, 5 and 5, 6 and 5, 7 and 4. So the second part is going to ask us to change it into a sequence. So remember, for that step, we're just taking out our term number or our first number and writing the list of terms in order. So we'd have 11, we don't need commas in between, sorry, 10, 7, 5, 5, 4. Now remember, because they're not using commas, we need to have a nice space in between each number, so we know that this is 11 and not 1, 1. And we know that this is 7 and this is 5 and not 75. Now, the reason we needed to do this step first of putting them in order is because if we didn't, our sequence would go 5, 4, 10, 7, 11, 5, which is not the same. They're not going to have the same pattern necessarily. So we need to make sure that we are actually going through step 1 and then to step 2 to make sure it's in the right order. Question B is going to ask you which sequence decreases by the same amount. So we could look at the one that we've done. We've gone down by 1, then we go down by 3, then we go down by 2, then we don't go down by any, and then we go down by 1. So this would not be a sequence that's decreasing by the same amount. So you'll have to look in your list and see which one do they actually decrease, but it's decreasing by the same number each time. So always take away 1, or always take away 3, or always take away 2. When you are finished, please complete the Google form that is attached to this lesson. There are 2 questions, one on turning ordered pairs into a sequence and the other one on matching the description to it. And if you need help, please comment on FreshGrade or Google Classrooms to let me know.